I'm okay, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm gonna let Chaz in right now.
All right.
I love the old recording in the closet trick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could give you a fake background, but
I'm gonna make a fake background that is my closet.
yeah, that's I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Hey Chaz, welcome to the show.
Oh man, Dan Duane, so good to see you.
Dude, are you in a sauna?
This is my record. I record in a sauna.
Do you actually record in a sauna?
No, this is the wife's yoga room.
Oh, the wife's yoga room. Right on. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Good. The same idea.
I mean, it's basic.
Hot
Good
yoga.
vibes.
Yeah.
If the wife has a yoga room, I think you deserve a podcast room, Chaz.
It's true. It's true. I need to get a podcast room with less bouncy echo.
Take notes from Dan.
Yeah.
I know.
I know, dude. Look at. Let me show you how I debounce it. Well, like first of all, this shit is great for sound absorption. The wife's dresses, and then look at and then in the corner here, see that towel tucked into the corner? That's like a sonic baffler.
Oh.
And
This
anyway,
guy's a pro. He's new to podcasting and yet already so professional. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's right.
Well, this is how we roll into the show. It's a soft intro. But Chaz, why don't you give a proper introduction to our guest?
So we have on the show today one Daniel Duane. He is a noted author and journalist. I remember when I started, I think it was before I started Welcome to Paradise, Now Go to Hell. My editor gave me Dan's book, Caught Inside, and said, you have to read this. This one is epic. And I had never read a surf book before. I thought, I'm not reading no dumb surf book. I'm a surf writer. I don't read surf books, but I read it and was immediately blown away by how great it was. So if anybody wants a good surf read or a good read, full stop, Caught Inside. And yeah, he writes for New York Times, writes cookbooks, all kinds of stuff. Too much to even say on this intro.
Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, right on. Thanks for having me.
Gladly.
Also, I think lived with Matt Warshaw. Did you live with Matt? Daniel Duane?
I didn't live with Matt, but when he lived in my neighborhood for a bunch of years here in San Francisco when he first had his baby, and he would walk up onto my block, and I'd like come out and go for a walk, and me and Matt, we'd be out there walking his little baby in the stroller, and he'd be like, dude, people probably think we're just like a 2-dad family. It was true.
That's funny. So did you know who Matt was from the surf world, or did you guys just become friends then?
Yeah, I met Matt when I met Matt in sort of a funny way. So when how did this go? The pattern must have been like this. So when Caught Inside came out in '96, I was like back in the 90s, as you guys recall, like surfing was a big deal to all of us, but surfing hadn't really been like integrated. It was in a phase of I guess in the 60s, it was pretty highly integrated into global pop culture, but in the 90s, it was in a kind of a phase of not being all that integrated into global pop culture. And so KQED, the San Francisco radio, I was living in Santa Cruz at the time and surfing down there, but KQED in San Francisco, which is the big NPR station, was like, they literally, their show Forum, which is their big daily chat, they literally did a show that was the theme of the whole chat discussion was like surfing. I mean, that was literally just like, wow, like surfing, let's talk about it. And so Matt was invited in and I was invited in, and we were sitting across from each other, and I was listening to this guy talk, and I was just feeling like, oh my God, this is like my soul brother. Like I'd never heard anybody, I don't know, he just was so smart and literate and funny and brilliant and knew absolutely everything about surfing. And I was just feeling like, oh man, I want to be friends with this guy. And then I think maybe within a few weeks, Matt was super embarrassed about this at the time, but Surfer's Journal published an excerpt from that book, and Pesman at the back of Surfer's Journal, he had these editor's liner notes. And in the liner notes, it was like, he was like, oh, recently this guy, Dan Duane, showed up in my office with this book. And on a whim, I was like, oh, sure, I'll publish a piece of it. And I called up Matt Warshaw to ask what Matt Warshaw knew about him. And actually, this must have been right after the KQED thing, because Matt and I went out and surfed Ocean Beach that day. And that was my first time at the beach. And Pesman's liner notes say, I called Matt Warshaw, and Warshaw was like, oh, yeah, I've met the dude. He's definitely a kook. And I had to call up Matt and be like, what was that, dude? God.
And Pesman published it.
And Pesman published that. So that was like, wow, thanks, bro.
Wow. I wonder what it was. Were you just a kook at surfing, or you just thought
Yeah,
you were
no.
kooky?
That was what he meant. I wasn't.
Okay.
I've never been a great surfer. I started just a little too late. I dabbled in surfing in my teens, but I grew up in Berkeley. I grew up like too far inland and no drivers so I didn't really learn to surf properly until I was about 21.
Okay.
And in Santa Cruz, and I don't know.
Well, we'll get into the podcast, but I'm also curious, do you guys actually know one another? I know Chaz gave the introduction of reading the book, but have you guys spent time together?
Me and Chaz?
Yeah.
Chatted on the phone, but never in person.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, the reason Dan is here is we are giving him a warm welcome into the world of podcasting. Dan, what are you up to?
So I've just released with Hyper Object, Adam McKay's production company, and Little Everywhere. They're an LA podcast production shop. We've together just released this new podcast called Reunion: Shark Attacks in Paradise. It's really like the story of the whole Reunion Island shark crisis over like a 10-year period. And, for most of us, this is another one of these things of like, how well is the algorithm tweaking your Google News feed for surf? Like,
Right.
when you look at Google News, does it put like, Felipe's latest air above, the war in Ukraine? But,
Right.
but my point being that for those of us who are sort of like obsessive geeks for Beach Grit, or or some of those other hopelessly relatively inadequate competitor sites we won't even name, the Reunion Island shark crisis, right, has been on our radar. There was that whole period where it was like, oh my God, another nightmare attack in Reunion. So basically Reunion Island, beautiful French island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. One of my missions for today is to convince Chaz in particular that I think Reunion Island is actually your personal paradise. But
I'm sure it is.
All those beautiful French people, all that French food.
I've thought this for a long time, and then sharks just cleaning the lineup every once in a while.
I'm
endless shark stories for Beach Grit.
Oh, but dude, for like personal travel, like the hotels are so good. The food is so good.
How much time did you spend there?
I was only there 2 weeks. So I went for 2 weeks in September.
Did you record the entire podcast over those 2 weeks?
No. What happened was I got the call to do this show just kind of out of the blue through a personal connect, just a guy who knew me, who was involved in this podcast company. They had like a story meeting of like, oh, we should do something about this crazy situation on sharks and Reunion. And they just called me to say, hey, would you look into this? That was in late 2019. And then we sort of wrapped up the commitment to do it together in early 2020, right as the pandemic was hitting. And then, for a long time in the beginning of the pandemic, there was that vibe of like, oh, this will be over in 2 months. We're just going to shut down the world for a month or two, or 2 months or 6 months. And so we were kind of on this endless hold. And then in the fall of 2020, I started thinking, God, maybe this pandemic's never going to end. So I started calling people, just cold calling people on the other side of the world. Like you guys are in California, right?
Yeah.
So to point to Reunion Island, especially for Chaz right now in Southern California, literally point at the floor, like point straight down. That's where Reunion Island is. It's actually like the antipode of LA.
Okay.
And so I just started calling people on the other side of the planet now and doing these Zoom calls and starting. So I ended up doing a lot of conversations with people over a long time before I went. And then I recorded a whole bunch of it there, of course.
Well, I'm going to read the synopsis real quick because it goes way beyond sharks. Because initially it's like, oh, how do you have is it 16 episodes?
It's 14. Yeah.
14. Okay. Yeah. How do you have 14 episodes just about sharks? Well, here's the synopsis. When Reunion became ground zero for the deadliest string of shark attacks the world has ever seen, long simmering tensions began to boil over on the island, forcing local surfers, politicians, and business owners into a proxy war with ocean lovers and conservationists worldwide. So can you unpack a little bit about that? What is the story on Reunion?
Yeah, so I mean, you can think about it like it helps a little, I think, to start with just picturing Reunion, because it helps make sense of it a little bit. So Reunion is about the size of Maui. It's like 30 miles by 40 miles, about 120 miles of coastline. So it's not giant, but it's not small. Something like 800,000, 850,000 people live there, big volcanic mountains in the middle. It's fully France, the way Hawaii is to the US, just is France. So lots of French people, French food, French everything. And surfing started on Reunion Island in the 60s. Reunion Island never had a kind of like old traditional water sports culture the way Polynesia did. So it's like, and mostly because of sharks and the nature of the ocean. It's in some ways geologically, it's like more like the Big Island of Hawaii. It's a pretty young island geologically, and so it doesn't. Anyway, so point is, starting in the 60s, mainland French people start moving down to the island for all kinds of reasons. That happens to be during the big like Gidget endless summer surf boom. So these French dudes are moving down there, and they're like, for the island lifestyle, and they're noticing outrageously good surf. I mean, insanely good surf. This has got to be one of the greatest concentrations of good surf on the planet, like really up there with Oahu. It's not just the famous left-hand point, Saint Louis, which is out of control. But okay, so this full-blown French surf culture grows up there. The national team trains there. Elite kid surfers, come up through the ranks. There's great coaches, tons of contests. I don't know if it's even called the ASP then. I think it's the ASP. ASP, World Tour contests are there. Rip Curl does a search contest. All the locals have anecdotes about the time they saw Kelly Slater, at the break, whatever. So this whole kind of surfing dream grows up on this island. And there was even a period in the 90s, I think, when I don't think people think about this as much as they used to, but there used to be this kind of, I don't know, do you feel like this is true still? I feel like there used to be this almost like round the world surf circuit. Like if you were a young surfer. And then I feel like in the 90s, I thought about that of like, I'll buy a round the world plane ticket, and I'll go like, and I'll replicate the endless summer kind of.
Yeah.
And Reunion was suddenly on that circuit.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, like probably 24 surf schools by the early 2000s, board guys shaping boards, many surf shops, the whole thing. And Jeremy Flores on the world tour, of course. And then starting in 2011, just completely out of the blue, like there just starts to be one gnarly shark attack after another, particularly in the year 2011 was completely out of control. Argument starts. Why is this happening? So this is kind of getting into what you're saying about the scope of the podcast, right? So like the thing that makes this super interesting, in addition to the fact that the shark attacks are so gnarly, is that there starts to be these arguments on the island of like, why is this happening? Are there suddenly more sharks? No, there aren't more sharks. There's always been sharks. What's happening is you like idiot, French mainland white boy surfers are coming down here, ignoring all the old Creole wisdom about sharks and surfing in stupid places at stupid times and getting chopped and wrecking it for everybody. So these social conflicts, it's kind of like these old simmering social tensions in Reunion life suddenly just map onto this argument about why sharks are munching people. And then the question of why sharks are munching people gets sort of baked into like, well, how do we do anything about it? So then arguments over how you solve it. Do we kill sharks? Do we not kill sharks? Do we kill surfers? Do we tell surfers to stay out of the water? All that just becomes this kind of hurricane of social tension and conflict, even as people are still just getting bit and losing limbs.
And so, I mean, the concern for the government or whomever is that it's the shark attacks are going to kill tourism, essentially, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's kind of a trip about it when I really started looking into it is like, it seems like in the early days of the crisis, the government fear was not so much shark attacks are going to kill tourism, but shark hysteria will kill tourism.
Gotcha.
And so their big focus was on, don't say anything, don't talk about it. There's no crisis. We have a people problem, a behavior problem, not a shark problem. And that, I don't know, that arguably that made everything worse.
Were you able to identify whether or not there were more sharks, whether there were more shark attacks, or was it just that more people were in the water than ever?
Yeah, I totally right. So it took a long time for decent science to get done about this. It's sort of amazing how little anybody knew in the early days of the crisis. There just was not good data, but now there is. And what the data really shows now is that there were more people in the water. So, and also just a quick backstory is that there had always been occasional shark attacks on Reunion Island, like as far back as there was surfing, basically.
Yeah.
And even earlier. Charles Baudelaire, the French poet, almost got eaten by a shark on Reunion when he was a loose, decadent teenager in a rich family. His parents tried to reform him by sending him off to India, and the boat stopped briefly in Reunion, and he demanded to be let ashore because he was just a privileged little prick. And he was on a little rowboat going ashore when he tried to get onto this pier, and he fell in the water, and apparently bull sharks were sighted just like immediately surging toward.
No, Flowers of Evil. That would have been the end of Flowers of Evil right there.
Yeah. So anyway, there had been attacks in the 90s. Another curiosity is that for 10 years in the 90s, there was kind of a spooky uptick in really nasty ones. I think there were 11 fatalities. Was it 10 fatalities in 11 years, 11 and 10, something like that in the 90s. But then in the 2000s, the number of shark attacks fell to almost nothing. So for the 10 years of like 2000 to 2010, tons of surfing going on, the number of surfers in the water totally spiking. There were almost no attacks. And then in 2011, the number just explodes. So what the data kind of ends up showing is that everybody's right. There are way more surfers in the water, through the 2000s. They may or may not be certain. There's this kind of local Creole wisdom on the island, which is not bullshit, which is that given that they're dealing with bull sharks, the old wisdom is only surf when the water's, or whatever, stay out of the water, period. That's the Creole wisdom. But if you absolutely have to get in the water for some inexplicable reason, never do it in the evening and never do it when the water's murky. Go midday when the water's super clear and when the sky is clear, when the sun is shining down, then you won't get bit. Okay, there's some evidence. Yes, there were clearly many more surfers through the early 2000s, but many more people in the water in general. But when the data really gets crunched, it also shows that the risk of any individual surfer getting attacked in that period went completely through the roof. So yes, there were more people, but there were definitely more sharks, and they were definitely biting more people. So sort of multiple, it's all true.
So what do they attribute that to?
Yeah, that's another thing that's kind of interesting about this story is that, of course, really early on, everybody was like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And they started throwing out all these hypotheses, right? Like everybody started throwing out hypotheses like, well, it's probably because in 1999, the French government banned the commercial sale of shark meat. And the idea is that for centuries, Reunionese people had fished commercially for shark, sold shark on the island. You could get shark curry in these little Creole food shops. In 99, the French government banned that. not for conservation reasons, but because ciguatera, this neurotoxin, was found in shark meat on Madagascar. So they were like, oh, well, you know, we can't have that here. Okay, well, maybe that took fishing pressure off the sharks. The other culprit was, oh, well, you know, God, then in 2007, the French national government declared the one chunk of the west coast of the island, which is the kind of clear water, coral reef, nice beach resort chunk of the island. They declared all of that a marine reserve. So now, like, nobody can fish anything in there, and now there's maybe more food there. And then it's like, oh, well, industrial trawlers started overfishing the open ocean. So yeah, so now I see what's going on. We got, oh, there's no food out on the high seas, but there's food in our marine reserve. So sharks are coming into the marine reserve, and then we're not fishing sharks anymore. And so they, you know, and the list of these things kind of goes, I mean, it turned out then these industrial trawlers were maybe also, after overfishing the high seas, then coming in close to Reunion and dumping all their bloody fish waste in the water off Reunion. Gosh. So now they're like chumming for sharks, basically at the surf spots.
Wow.
The list of these potential causes goes on. And in all the argument over them, nobody was really, I mean, a lot of science got done on this and nobody was ever really able to tease it apart. And the best anybody can say now is, yeah, those things probably all contributed and all interacted with each other to create kind of this perfect environmental storm. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do they allow for culling of sharks now on Reunion, or is it still no?
Oh yeah, no, they cull sharks.
Yeah.
They cull sharks. Yeah, they fought about that viciously for a long time about whether or not to cull sharks, and there were lawsuits, and Sea Shepherd got involved, and other, you know, international ocean conservation orgs got involved, and there were super nasty fights all over the island about killing sharks. But what in 2013, that was when the tide started to change a little bit, when a 15-year-old, it was really when a 15-year-old girl got killed while just basically like wading in waist deep water with her sister. And then in 2015, a girl, or a young woman, early 20s, same thing, like literally standing in waist deep water, gets killed. And then a kid, this was a really famous one. I think you guys probably covered this one. Yeah. Elio Canestri.
Yeah.
He was like the 13-year-old. He was like the next real world tour prospect out of Reunion. You know, the next like he was, everybody in the island knew him. Sweet kid, and total ripper, winning contests. You know, he was the big up and comer, and then he got killed. And it was really after that one that the French government kind of stopped screwing around and just said, okay, we're gonna start killing sharks.
You've referred to these attacks as being super gnarly. Is there any non-gnarly shark attack? Are these worse than others?
Totally. This is really a weird part of doing this story, but so all my surfing really has been, except for occasional travel, is Northern California, you know, like right in the Great Whites red triangle up here. I guess you guys are in it too now in Southern California, like they're everywhere. But so like every California surfer, you know, I grew up or spent all my surfing years thinking, you know, you think about the man in the gray sharkskin suit, you know, lurking just below you. And I'm telling you, the more I learned about Reunion Island, where it's really mostly bull sharks doing the attacking, the better I felt about great whites. Weirdly, the whole experience calmed me down so much about great whites, because literally to the point that I just this summer, like a month or so ago, I'm suiting up at a spot. A guy I recognize comes walking in with his surfboard and and says, dude, I just saw a shark. And I'm like, really? How big? He says 8 or 10 feet. I said, is that why you get out of the water? He said, uh-huh. 2 more surfers come in. Yeah, we saw the same shark. And I look out and I'm just like, there's still a bunch of people in the water. I think I'll just go surfing. I mean, and that is, I'm not a cavalier dude about risk. This is purely because of how different Reunion is. And to put it in another kind of context, like Florida is almost all bull sharks too, implicated in their attacks. I think in 2021, there were 28 shark attacks in Florida. and not a single fatality. In Reunion Island, at one point, the fatality rate in shark attacks was 50%. And in the non-fatalities, virtually everybody like lost a limb, at least one limb. So something very, very different was going on in the bull shark attacks on Reunion Island in that period.
Are they bigger than the ones in Florida?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, they're really big
Gotcha.
comparatively to Florida. But then bull sharks, it also just turns out, yeah, well, okay. So, right. So there's the Florida question. Why were the Reunion attacks so gnarly and these Florida bull shark attacks are not? Maybe that has to do with size. Maybe there's some other factor we don't know. But the Reunion bull sharks, I think in the aggregate are a lot bigger than the ones in Florida. They tend to be like 500 pounds, 600 pounds, 8 feet, 10 feet. That's a really big bull shark. Totally. And then the other kind of thing about bull sharks is that a smaller bull shark is a lot more. Bull sharks are super dangerous at a much smaller size than even tiger sharks or great whites. Like just recently we had was that Monterey area just like a few weeks ago where a guy who's like a triathlete is out for an open water swim. Yeah. Okay, so they are saying that I think you guys maybe covered that. Did you cover that? That guy gets bit. I think they are saying that shark was a 20-footer, right? That thing was a megalodon, and it didn't kill him. He didn't even lose a limb. Like that is a beast that can bite a fully grown adult male sea lion in half in a single chomp with no problem. So the fact that guy doesn't die, that really tells you something, that everything they say to us about like great whites are literally not hunting us. They literally don't want to eat us. It's kind of real, whereas that's not. I don't know that bull sharks are actively in Reunion. I don't think they're actively hunting humans, but they're not hunting humans.
Yeah. Like, so did you surf while you were there?
Yeah. So that was a kind of an issue because I don't know. I bet Chaz remembers in the 90s when the first images of Saint Loup made it into the American surfing press, right? I mean, right? It's literally
looked like heaven.
That's what it was like actually this image of surfer heaven. It's etched into the brain of everybody who saw those. There was like a Rip Curl search poster, and well, that happened to me. I mean, I was like living in Santa Cruz and starting to have my first surf dreams and travel dreams. So Saint Loup had been in my brain, for whatever that is, 25 years. And as this dream place to go. And I worked for Surfer Magazine a bit in the late 90s. So I did some trips for Surfer Magazine. I did some like boat trips and whatnot for Surfer Magazine with pros, but I can't afford that stuff anymore. I don't really get to do a lot of that. So as the trip got closer to Reunion, I started to kind of stress out about this issue because I really was freaking out because I was realizing, oh my God, I am going to be like sitting on beaches in the tropics, but not the gnarly, way too hot tropics, just like the kind of perfectly warm, nice tropics, like Hawaii at its best,
Yeah.
Looking at the best surf I've ever seen in my life with nobody in the water. Like that's going to happen to me. And how am I going to how am I even going to cope with that? And this could go on for weeks. So I did. And that happened, by the way, that totally happened. Like Saint Loup, and I'm like, another thing that's so heavy about Saint Loup to process as a surf spot is Saint Loup is not like Cloudbreak, right? Like Cloudbreak, which I've also been to, obviously, like if you're a super surfer, it's a miracle. But you guys know, like Cloudbreak is gnarly and it's not a perfect wave. And that whatever the people I just remember there being like a bowl section that sort of starts to really stand up after you've, entered the wave. It's terrifying. Saint Loup is like, it's like Rincon, but better and in perfectly warm water. It's like a 300-yard, beautiful skate park of a wave.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Plus, there are waves on Reunion that are better than Saint Loup that nobody talks about. There are literally waves that are better and longer than Saint Loup that nobody talks about. So to be a Californian of a certain age, like myself, the days are growing short. Oh, fuck, I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
I'm just going to turn it off. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
To be a Californian of a certain age, looking at that stuff, not able to, oh God, it breaks you. And on one of my last days there was this guy, Laurie LeConstant is his name, who's in the podcast. He's a character in the podcast, and he's a local dude. He's a guy who grew up on the island, and he is a very, very good surfer. He's a guy, he's just a local dude with a good job. I don't know. He works like at a frozen food importing business, has a nice job, spends all his money on surf travel, surfs all the time, has a massive quiver. But I got to really like this guy. And he was a guy who had never quit surfing. The number of surfers in the water fell by tenfold or more during the crisis. Almost everybody just completely quit for 8 years, 10 years. And Laurie never did. Laurie was in this kind of hardcore underground that we're just psyched. They're just like, sweet, nobody's in the water anymore. I can surf anywhere I want, anytime I want. Mm-hmm. And he had these electronic shark repellent devices, like the No Shark or the Shark Shield, these things you put on your board or on your ankle or whatever. And he was just working on me. Like, he had started working on me by Facebook Messenger even before I got to Reunion. Like, I got a board for you. I got a Shark Shield for you. We're going to score, man. And I was feeling like, oh, dude, I don't know, like I got kids and I kind of like my legs and, I don't know, I like having two hands. But over the time that I was there, like it's slowly, I could feel my resistance breaking down. And then there was one day when this guy just took me for a ride all the way down the island. And it was just, God damn, man, it was like 30 miles of just one good, beautiful break after another with at most 5 people in the water, mostly nobody. One break after another. It's not just one spot. It's so many.
Yeah.
And he finally took me to a pretty remote little beach park that was like the picture of tropical beauty, total white sand and palm trees shading green grass behind the beach. And I just and there's like this perfect little left reef wave just peeling off. And I just cracked, I just was
good for you.
I just finally cracked. I just like started thinking, God damn, man, there hasn't been, I don't know, what are the chances it's gonna happen to me? And the truth is like, there hadn't been an attack on this island. There hasn't been an attack actually since 2019. So the crisis, I mean, no one would have said in 2019, oh, that was it. That was the last attack. That's not how that works. But, and this guy, Laurie, by the way, this is in the podcast, but this guy, Laurie, had this really intense experience for the last attack that what now turns out to have been the last attack in that epic sequence of them, where he was an early adopter of these electronic shark repellent devices. He goes out at Saint Loup. I mean, this is what these guys had, right? These guys had perfect Saint Loup with like 3 people in the water for years. He goes out at Saint Loup. There's 2 other guys in the water. They all have shark devices. Another guy paddles out, a guy named Kim Mabuli paddles out, and he doesn't have one. And Laurie, who is he's pretty hardcore. His risk calculus is pretty different from my own. He says to this guy, Kim, hey man, you don't have a device, and this guy, Kim, says, it's true, I don't, but he's got these like zebra stripes on the bottom of his board, those stickers people put on their board, or they're like big eyes looking down. Laurie Laurie senses something moving underneath him. He sees a big dark shape moving underneath him. Stress, it completely freaks him out. He thinks, oh man, this is not feeling bad. I think that was a shark. And he catches a wave. He's telling himself, this is going to be my last wave, right? He gets this, whatever, just like a great, really long, way overhead Saint Louis wave, pulls out. And like we all would, how are you going to go in after that? You can't go in. He's like, I'm not going in. So he turns around, he starts paddling back out when he hears the screaming. So the short version is that in that crowd I just described to you, I think in the moment that this happened, it's like, because the lineup had cleared out of touch, but let's say it's two guys sitting there with electronic shark repellents on. The bull shark swims between them and takes the guy who doesn't have one. That affected a lot of people's thinking on the island, as you can imagine. So Laurie works on me. He's got the device for me. I'm there in late 2021. It's been 2 years since that incident. So I put on the ankle bracelet and paddled out, and he gave me a board. And
so you had one session?
I had then I did another two. I can't remember if it was one or two, maybe just one other session. I went there's a place, the other way they have dealt with the other thing they've done is they've developed, it's really a trip. They've developed these underwater shark lookout teams. So like the whole thing with bull sharks, they've kind of figured out is bull sharks really don't like to be seen. So if the water visibility is good, and there are divers in the water just like looking around, bull sharks will just stay away. They won't even come close. Like they won't even come anywhere near the scene. So yeah, it's a trip. So the French government, I mean, that's just a trip that, it's a socialism thing. It's like socialism working for surfers here in a weird way, but they created this whole underwater lookout. These are civil service jobs. Underwater shark lookout for surfing is a civil service with bennies, right? And every morning, a couple of boats go out really early, and I saw them doing this. They go out really early on this one chunk of the West Coast, and they cruise every surf spot, and guys jump in and out of the boat looking at the water visibility. And if they find a good surf spot with good visibility, they then send out a post on Facebook, and every surfer on the island follows this Facebook page, right? Yeah. They send out a post on Facebook that says, we're going to be at this break today. And then this whole underwater lookout team posts up at that break with they'll have 2 motorboats out there that have underwater cameras beaming images to dudes on the beach who have laptops and are watching on the screen. They'll have literally I think they'll have 24 divers who are going in shifts, alternating, so that there will be at any given time as many as 12 free divers arranged around the perimeter of the break, who are, and they're not allowed to have spear guns, which is sort of weird, but their job is to just swim endlessly up and down, free diving all day long, looking around for bull sharks. And then all the surfers will sort of, crowd themselves inside this crazy gauntlet. Anyway, I did do that one day at a break that was also called Trois Bassins, or 3 Ponds, which is it's a pretty wonderful Malibu style spot. So it's like a really beautiful, it's not really a point break, I guess it's more of a reef break, but it has that kind of beautiful, long, cruisy, beautiful clear water. And
did your sessions live up to your childhood dreams?
No, well, the one at the beach park in the south did, because that was just me and Laurie and 2 other guys. So that was one of those just all the waves you can eat.
Yeah, beautiful
tropical clear water, really fast, zippy little left. But by the time I got my guts up to do, so then doing those 2 sessions calmed me way down, and I was like, oh, well, I just surfed twice. I didn't lose a leg because we're all idiots, and that's how we do the math. But anyway, I didn't get it. That's a long story, but I didn't get a chance I didn't get a chance to go out at Senlo in that moment. Like the sort of stars didn't align for me to have a board and I don't know. Anyway,
Gotcha.
And I was fucking scared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally understandable. So the podcast is called Reunion Shark Attacks in Paradise. 14 episodes. Are there 4 that are currently released?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And what day of the week does it come out?
It's a Tuesday drop. Every Tuesday
Gotcha.
is the drop. Yeah.
What do you how do you like the medium of podcasting?
Oh man, I love the medium.
Do you?
Yeah, I really dig it. It's totally new for me. I've never done it before, and I don't know. It's
do
fun.
you envision doing anything else after this series is over? And what would you do if you were gonna dive into a new story? Anything in the surf world?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, on the question of do I envision doing more audio, the answer is yeah, totally. I mean, I absolutely. And then in terms of what exactly it would be, what the content would be, I got a bunch of ideas, but I've been in a tunnel. Sorry, there's no noise in my house. Hold on a sec. I've been in such a, I think it's his wife, but
Okay.
I've been in such a production tunnel on
Yeah.
this project for so many months. It was pretty radical the last few months on production that, and I just want to do a good job at this one. So I kind of cleared my brain out and didn't.
Good.
So now I'm just kind of taking a deep breath, looking forward in life, and starting to think, oh man, I want to do more. I want to do something else like that.
I would love it if you did. I think there's so many stories that could be told in surfing from the same style that you're doing with the Reunion series, where it is more journalistic. It's incorporating a lot of interviews with a lot of different people, research, because I just got into podcasting because I was a fan of other podcasts, but the style of shows that I was a fan of, I've never actually created on my own. And it's because I've focused my energy on interviews initially, and that's just occupied all of my time. And now I'm just on this hamster wheel that I have to kind of keep up with. But I always have envisioned this other style of show that could be done. And I have a bunch of concepts for what those shows would be and the actual stories, but I just don't have the time to put in because, one episode of your Reunion show takes so much more time to produce than Chaz and I making 1 hour of The Grit where we're just talking,
Yeah.
But so I encourage you to do it.
Right on. Thank you. Yeah. I kind of came, I know what you're talking about. I got kind of, the early podcasts that I got turned on by were not chat style. I've ended up really liking chat shows, is the truth. And I think most people do. So it's kind of great because they're less work and they're really good and fun. But I know what you mean. I got hooked pretty early on like Malcolm Gladwell style or, those that are these like really structured storytelling. Can be really fun.
And those are evergreen too. Like you can go back, people will go back and listen to Serial 20 years from now. You know what I mean?
Oh, right. So, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
But at any rate, we congratulations. Welcome
congrats.
To podcasting. And we're thrilled. I'm excited to check out the series.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Cross country drive here coming up, so I'll have something to listen to.
Hey, right on. Thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dad.
And next time we chat, I want to hear everything about your experience with Thomas Keller too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, can do. That's funny. Right.
Future show.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks,
Dan.
Dan.
Bye, guys.
What a
do you want me to recall in? Yeah. Matt Warsham is such a dick. What a dick.
No, what do you mean recall in?
On another Zoom for the editing purposes? Okay.
No, this is easy. This works.
Wait.
So where are you traveling, or what are you traveling across country for?
I am driving, I think it's a soft hold, but I think I'm driving daughter's car out to Vanderbilt University for her.
Gotcha.
She did not have the car last year. She has a Vanderbilt Commodore, but I think wants it this year. And her and the wife were plotting out like a super fun 5-day thing. And then I think realizing that it's like 8 hours of driving per day,
Yeah.
I started to think, well, this is actually not going to be fun. And I like to drive, so
Cool.
I'll just bang out there.
Well, now you got something to listen to.
Exactly.
How good is Dan, by the way?
He's great. I mean, I've chatted with him on the phone a couple times, but really truly, like when editor gave me Caught Inside, I was like, screw you. I'm not going to read this kook surf book. And it was so good that, it made me really like him. And then the fact that I had no idea, who he was, but Matt knew him. And I think Matt put me in touch with him, and like whatever. He fell in love with cooking at some point too. And I think one of his books is How to Cook Like a Man, but apparently he's a phenomenal chef.
Yeah. That he wrote an article. I don't know where it originally ran, but it won some big award he wrote an article about working with Thomas Keller, or meeting Thomas Keller and spending time with Keller and learning from him and stuff. But super interesting guy. He was talking about when he heard Matt Warshaw speaking at the NPR thing, how he was like, oh man, I want to be friends with this guy because he's articulate and blah, blah, blah. That's how I feel about Dan to a certain degree, because when I grew up surfing, it was only burnouts. And like, I don't know if that was true or not, but my perception was surfing is Spicoli. And when I went to the beach, and the biggest rippers were also the guys smoking the most weed, working the least amount. They had the least kind of other inputs in their life, the least education, all of this stuff. So they were essentially burnouts. And that's what surfing was. And even in the magazines, I feel like that's kind of who were being venerated. So once I got older, and I actually didn't hang out with surfers because I didn't identify with any of that stuff. But as I've gotten older, and it's like, oh no, Chaz, reads and is articulate. Matt Warshaw is researched and well-spoken. And there's all these other people that are into surfing too.
Yep. Dan Duane, highly educated.
Definitely. And a pleasure. Well, as we kind of go through the news topics of the week, here in the second half of the show, we've got JBay is going absolutely off. Chopu absolutely folding on itself. Totally. Have you been watching any of the JBay event?
I haven't. It's such a bad time here. Have you?
Yeah.
I've watched the highlights in the morning. I mean, which I guess credit to JBay. I never watch highlight packages of pro surfing. If I catch the event, I catch it. If I don't, I don't. But I've been, for the last two, I've been catching up with the action.
I watched yesterday morning when I woke up. I spent some time this morning because of our prep for the show. I didn't have a ton of time to watch, but what I did see was it was absolutely pumping, like kind of as good as you would want it to be. And they ran a lot of heats and lots of scores in the 9-point range. Yago Dora looked unbelievable. Jack Robinson looked unbelievable. Yago took out Felipe, which is a story. Sammy Pupo is right in contention in this event, which is incredible. Jordy Smith is back in contention as well. So that's incredible to see.
The watching like just those JBay walls and seeing the difference in the great surfers great surfing between like not so great surfing is such a pleasure. Like I've forgotten, especially over the last, I don't know, lackluster. I mean, when was the last good? Did Margaret get good waves?
Pipe was the last great event.
Yeah, I mean, basically, right? So to have lackluster surf all year, or especially for the last 3 events, at least from G-Land to Salvador I guess had a couple days, but nothing like this. But just watching phenomenal surf, like watching artists kind of in their prime battle it out couldn't ask for more.
Well, it's crazy that you and I are even having this conversation and that we've had this conversation for years, because it seems so obvious. Put the best surfers in the world in good waves, and that's really what the sport is. That's what the World Surf League or any sporting organization would know to do. It just seems so obvious. So the fact that we're watching JBay pumping and it's an epiphany, like, wow, what a stark contrast this is to the last 4 events. That's shocking.
Yeah. And I mean, it's especially shocking in the day and age of I know everybody loves when we harp on the WSL. Well, yeah. But I was going to just go positive, but I'm not going to go positive. I'm going to stay negative here. In the day and age that we live in, wave forecasting, et cetera, et cetera. And I get that you have to have permits and it's a more complicated thing. But how have they not changed the structure to just basically guarantee? Like, to have a big window for Tahiti, a big window for JBay, a big window for like the great waves, and you just go when they're best. Like, you forecast them out and you go when they're best.
That's exactly what they do for the big wave tour.
Exactly.
So it's totally doable.
Sure. So they get permits somehow with that. So the permitting issue, again, I'm not naive to think that, there's not a structure and it's difficult, but lean the thing down, man, slim it down. And so you can do that.
Well, as we talked about last week, when we were talking about the ELO interview on Lipped, they're kind of focused on fixing the wrong things or focused on changing the wrong things. So the big structure that you're talking about, they're keeping. They think they need the big structure and they're trying to work out these other details. They should be getting rid. There's no need for the big structure anymore. Everything should be nimble. Everything should be mobile. Yep. And when we saw that episode this week of Kelly Slater's Lost Tapes that was set in Brazil, I think Derek wrote the headline for Beach Grit about Kelly and Pat O'Connell, who was the tour director at the time, or the whatever commissioner. Pat O'Connell's checking that barreling right-hander down the beach. The contest venue set up a mile that way. And this right-hander's firing. And Kelly shows up and he's like, Pat, we got to move the contest down here. And Pat's like, well, I don't know. Pat's hemming and hawing because he knows the logistics involved are huge.
Yep.
But to anybody else, like if you're not considered about that, there would be no question. You surf the pumping right-hander. The fact that they're even considering or the fact that they're even anchored to those logistics is a huge problem.
I mean, why do you need a huge like VIP tent on the beach and things like that? Like,
they don't. At this point, you entirely don't. But they're in that headspace of, we want to create a stadium environment. We want all these fans to come in. Well, if we're going to build this, we need we're going to have sponsors to pay for it. So then the sponsors need a booth and they need to sell merch and all. No, you don't need any of that. The only thing you need to do is put the best surfers in the best waves. So anyways, here at JBay, you see it. It's instantaneously obvious. It's instantly obvious. You watch these guys, Jack Robinson on one of his 9-point rides. I mean, he did crazy turns, gets barreled, comes out, starts doing more turns. And I was thinking, when you finish a clip on Instagram, it starts at the beginning again.
Yeah.
I'm watching his 8th turn going, oh, is the clip just replaying from the beginning again? And it wasn't. It's just that he got barreled that many times and did that many turns. And it's like, this is what we want to see. This is so different than what you could do anywhere else on the planet. And it's a world-class wave, and it's the world-class surfer riding it.
I've forgotten how good these guys actually surf. Like,
I know.
You get into thinking like, okay, it's like, heat strategy and this, that, and the other thing. But rarely am I thinking about, or, the guy who kind of boosts in air and is going to stick it or not. Like, but it's not like this kind of, it is art. Those guys, it makes me completely respect everyone out there's ability. Like, everyone is ripping. Matthew McGillivray, was he against Kelly in his first or the day one heat?
No, he wasn't, but he did win that heat against over Griffin Colapinto and Jadson Andre.
That's it. But just like watching him, obviously it's his home break, but he was ripping out there. Like, totally. Easy turns.
Totally. The other thing that is worth noting is that style is nullified at small beach breaks or even small G-land. At JBay, style is on display. It's everything. And the reason why I think that's important is that if you just go down to your local beach or wherever, style is such a huge part of surfing. If you open up a magazine from when they first started printing about surfing all the way through that when they stopped printing surf magazines, style is a super integral part of surfing. And so for most of the WSL's competitions to not be able to showcase it because they're running in crappy surf is a huge misstep. And JBay is the exact opposite. JBay is the spot where style is identified between, you know, Jadson's not going to make it through heats no matter how many turns he does because it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I love the Jadson Andre story, right? Like the plucky underdog who keeps on fighting, keeps on scraping. Like, great, nothing against Jaddy, but yeah, he's not a pretty surfer, which that's great. But
you can contrast him with Yago Dora. You know, like they have a similar approach, but Yago just looks so much better doing it. And it's the thing about style in surfing is it's not strictly for fashion. It's actually for function. When your body mechanics are that proper, it puts you in the best positions on the wave.
You know,
Yago's the example.
You know who Yago reminded me of out there?
No.
Jerry Lopez.
Really?
Do you remember when Ashton told Yago that people were saying he looked like Jerry Lopez out at Pipe?
No.
You don't remember that?
No, what do you mean? What was this in a video? Should I have seen this? Or did you write a headline about it?
I mean, yeah, it was a good run of stories, but I think it was in a video. It was a clip that was captured with Ashton just sucking up to Yago, sitting next to him real close and saying,
That's
yeah,
right.
everybody was saying, Yago, that you were looking like Jerry out there.
That's right. It was on a porch at
Yeah,
Pike.
exactly.
Maybe at the Volcom.
Yep.
It was at the Volcom house.
Yeah.
Now I do remember.
Yeah.
It was in, I think, a no contest Red Bull thing. And yeah, I remember Ashton like saying it to him to suck up to Yago, and Yago being uncomfortable with the analogy and knowing that he was getting sucked up to. So he's kind of like laughing uncomfortably.
Yeah.
I do remember now.
Very funny.
Well, going into tonight for you and I, they've got the quarterfinals of the men's. It's Jack Robinson versus Sammy Pupo. Interestingly, Sammy surfs great and he deserves to be in the quarterfinals, but I still don't feel like he's got the same, I don't know, gravity to his turns or something like that. He still looks a little bit lightweight and flicky to me.
I mean, this is a real coming out party for Jack Robinson. I think this whole year has been like the waves have not been, you know, as good as they've might have been or could have been, but he is still like, I mean, it's hard for me to think that Jack doesn't win the event, to be honest, the way he's surfing.
And maybe even win the whole season.
Yeah. I mean, there's the problem though. It's a problem no matter what. Like this dang Trestles ender is bad no matter what. It's bad if Pip comes in with a 20,000 point lead and loses. It's also bad if Jack Robinson comes in as visually, clearly the best surfer on tour and loses to some flick, you know, some little air thing at Trestles. Like
that would be a shame.
Yeah. Like if he is, you know, even if he's not in the lead, even if he's not number one, to not be able to go for it at a wave that has equal gravitas to the moment, like either a pipeline, a Chopu, a JBay, a, you know, somewhere epic, to be able to really fight it out at somewhere epic and have to do that at Trestles is like, again, nothing against Trestles. It's a great wave, but it doesn't have the gravitas.
I think you nailed it in that one sentence. The wave needs to have the same gravitas or gravity as the moment itself.
And
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Heat number 2 in the quarterfinals is Idolo versus Kanoa. Idolo has stepped up in this event. I did not anticipate him actually, just because his season is, even though he's in third, his season has been a little bit of hot and cold. And so it's great to see him showing up and blowing up in this event, kind of realizing that he's in threat of falling out of that top 5 and he's delivering. Then we've got Yago Dora and Connor O'Leary. And then heat number 4 is the one I'm excited about, which is Jordy Smith and Ethan Ewing.
Yep. Jordy Smith, Ethan Ewing. Jordy Smith is looking really good. I mean, it's funny that it's surprising that Jordy Smith works so good at JBay, but you see Jordy Yeah, again, I guess watching Jordy in his element, you remember why he is a surfer of note, a surfer that we all know.
Yeah, he just needs good waves.
Yeah, it wasn't the, like, I forget sometimes. I think that Jordy and all these guys, they're just a product of the marketing machine. That's why we know them. But no, you see Jordy on Perfect JBay and think, oh, that's why I know Jordy Smith, because he is a ripping surfer.
Absolutely. Yeah, he needs the canvas to display his wares, but when he's on, there's few surfers in the world that have the full arsenal that he has, because
Yep.
the power element is just on a different level, because he could do all the airs, he can get barreled, all that stuff, but that power is just unbelievable. So incorporating it with everything is incredible.
Pippi Toledo losing is I wonder if he starts getting shaky, if he starts seeing Idolo turn on, if he's clearly watching Robinson's domination of, or really coming up. I wonder if he gets skittish and falters back half and then just loses at trestles.
Yeah, I don't know. He barely lost to Yago Dora. I think Yago needed a score in the dying seconds and Yago got a 9 or whatever. And so Felipe was surfing great up until, I mean, he surfed great, period.
Nothing against Felipe surfing, but just he doesn't, or has not demonstrated that like cutthroat killer that Gabriel Medina has, and also Idolo has, right? Like Idolo was not afraid of the moment. Pep will be curious to see if the moment becomes too big for him.
And he's got the moment at Chopu before we even get to lowers, so that's a moment too.
I mean, if it's pumping Chopu, like big gnarly chopes like it is now, that'll be fun.
It's so exciting, actually.
Yeah.
So bravo to the WSL, by the way, for all of the criticisms that we level. Bravo for pulling off an epic event at JBay.
Yeah, thank you.
One more listener comment from JBay, and this kind of follows something that I brought up last week, I believe. This comes from a longtime listener. I don't know if he wants to be named or not, so I'll leave his name out of it. But he said, I missed the men's elimination round because of the time zone difference, but I just saw that Kolohe Andino did not get out of the elimination round. Loved his dad in the PSAA days and have been rooting for Kolohe since he emerged on tour. He is my number one rooting interest. So I do not say this as mockery or jest, but is it safe to say that Kolohe Andino is the biggest disappointment of the 2022 CT? I think so. I still love him. I watch Reckless Isolation nonstop, but I'm about to give up the hope of Andino ever winning a CT crown.
I mean, it seems like Kolohe needs a real reset. Like he needs to end this tour. Like, and that's the thing. I'm sure knowing him, like I have no doubt that he has explored every single performance enhancing, and I don't mean drugs, but like, talking to sports psychologists and training the right way and, getting his mind right. And like, he has done that. It's not like he's not doing that. If I was him after this season, I would toss all of it away. I would say, I'm not going to talk to a sports psychologist. I'm not doing anything. I don't care anymore. Like, I'll go lose if I lose, and that's fine. Like, there's like watching him this year, it has been a bummer, especially at a place like JBay where it's, say it again, pumping. I love that one word starts describing thing. Like WSL used the word pumping so many times, and now everybody's just pumping JBay. But anyway,
passionate Brazilians
pumping JBay. But Kolohe should have shined there. It totally suits his style of surfing, and clearly he's a head case. And how do you not be a head case? The more you start thinking about being a head case, the more you are a head case. And then you think, I'm not going to think about being a head case anymore, but you're still a head case because you're still thinking about it. And yeah, I don't know. He's a head case.
This is a Southern California thing. Brett Simpson was plagued by this. Taylor Knox was plagued by this through his career. He had the nickname Bonehead because of it. And it's really, I agree with the listener. I love Kolohe. I've been rooting for Kolohe. And it's really hard to understand why he hasn't done more. But I replied to that listener and I said, not only is he possibly the biggest disappointment of 2022, he might be one of the largest kind of under delivered potentials in all of pro surfing history. He was anticipating, we were expecting him to win world championships. Not only has he not done that, he's never won a single event. Which is shocking when you think of how good he is, how big his profile is, all that, to kind of maintain that level of awareness and been on tour the entire time. It's not like he took seasons off to go focus on free surfing. He's never won a single event. And so I think the hopes are out the window at this point.
And to the listeners, point exactly is, it's not like Kolohe does not rip. Like Reckless Isolation, it was one of the better films of the year. And of course it was a cast, but Kolohe ripped.
Totally. Yeah, it's crazy.
He's a head case.
It's crazy.
But watching, it's always like watching Over the Wife's Shoulder, right? Like she works with athletes in skateboarding, snowboarding usually, but you see the ones who have all the talent in the world and you just know they're going to lose because they're head cases.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Yep.
Well, moving on from JBay, we got a couple of stories that are worth discussing. Wild melee at Snapper Rocks as surfer unleashes volley of punches on young bodyboarder before former pro surfer steps in with the beatdown of his own. Quote, punching a kid multiple times in the head because he drops in on you is weak and embarrassing. Did you read this story?
Sure did. Derek's intro to the story is like peak Derek Riley. Derek lived on the Gold Coast. I don't know if it was Coolangatta, lived somewhere, for a hot minute. And has no love for the place. So it's funny, anytime Derek writes about the Gold Coast, like he knows it's seedy underbelly and writes it beautifully. So I appreciated this story as a literary work. And then also just the ugly stupidity of beating a kid. What in the world? And I like people in the comments of Beach Grit, where there was debate as to whether the surfer, faded on the kid or the kid dropped in on the surfer or whatever. But my goodness, surf rage, we've all felt it. We've all had it. I can look back at my moments of surf rage and I'm embarrassed about all of them, probably. Like surf rage should almost get erased. Like,
especially in a lineup like that. That's like being upset at somebody at Disneyland because it's too crowded.
Yeah.
It's like you're in that lineup. Of course, you're going to get burned a million times. You're going to burn some people on because you didn't, it's just not worth throwing punches in that lineup. But the most egregious part was that, it was a kid.
Yeah.
A teenager.
It's funny that this came right in the wake of ground abuse, right? Like the Kelly Slater story, shouting in the kid to the Kandui bomb. And consensus was burn the kid, right? Like let him get pummeled, ground abuse. And then this story, I think you kind of saw the line of where ground abuse ends, I suppose. But there was still some people saying, give the kid a smack.
I don't think, do you know who the former pro was? That
it's in there. It's in the story. I didn't recognize the name.
Okay. I didn't commit it to memory when I read it. The former pro coming in to the kid's rescue is epic. You see him paddling with real intention and you're like, oh shit, this guy's coming in. And then he totally just lays into the dude. And it's like, when your dog's barking, how you need like a loud clap to get their attention or something to like break them out of it. The way that he comes and breaks the bully out of it is pretty awesome to see.
Such a, like, that kind of behavior is so rare. Like people just sitting around.
Agreed.
Black-jawed, like take action, people. Like if you see something that is a moral blight or like properly wrong, jump in. Like don't sit and wait for somebody else to take the lead. So you see somebody packing a woman on the street or something, like sure, there's crazy times, right? Everybody's packing guns and wacky stuff, but don't let like straight injustice happen because you're too scared to do anything.
Totally. Completely agree. It was great to see.
Yeah.
True grit or clickbait crap. Ornery sea lions act part of grumpy locals, send women and children stampeding in fear for their lives on off beloved La Jolla Beach.
True. This was a viral TikTok thing that has nothing to do with surfing. So it is clickbait crap. But the video was funny of women and children just fleeing these two sea lions. And I have a personal beef against sea lions, so I want to continue to give them a bad name.
What's the beef?
Oh man, Buddy Sailboat, Newport Harbor.
Oh yeah.
Stinky fat sea lions will go, like, the boat has a nice like back scoop on the back. They will drag their fat asses up in there and basically almost break it off. There'll be like 4 or 5 lounging. They're protected species, so you can't really do much to keep them off. You can build like kind of contraption-y stuff, but it's like, if there's anything that looks too ominous, Harbor Patrol will literally come and dismantle it. And so, yeah, like it's a perpetual problem, and they stink. They're lazy and they stink. Like, so get on the boat, there's like sea lion flies everywhere, just rotten stench everywhere. So boo sea lions.
You're right. That is a lazy species of animal.
Yep.
Lazy and also like fat and disgusting.
Yeah. Entitled.
Take care of yourself.
They're like the worst part of America, sea lions.
They really are.
Lazy. Yep.
Well, they got to be living off fast food to get that fat.
I know, they fully are. Just like McDonald's.
See, I disagree though. I don't hate the animal. I love like your take on them playing the part of the grumpy local. I was like, yes, this is seeing these lions lounging on the beach. That is their beach, by the way. And there's all of these hordes of humanity right around them, putting towels down right next to them with all these bright colors, just being obnoxious. There was one video clip that I saw where a kid and his family come down the stairs. The parents are like distracted. They're not even paying attention to the kid. And the kid meanders right over to this 1,000-pound sea lion. And the thing snaps at the kid because the kid got so close. The kid wandered. He didn't even realize the sea lion was there because it looked probably like a rock. It wasn't moving, but he gets within 2 feet and that lion snaps at him. And the kid goes running and the parents are like, oh my God. And they're all mortified, but it's like, you guys keep an eye on your kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody's wrong here except the lion. And by the way, the lion waited until the last second to let that kid know what's up. But it's like, I want to see somebody get attacked. I was thrilled to see those lions chase people off the beach.
It was a great video.
Totally. I'm for the lions. And by the way, I'm also reminded, like, yes, the grumpy locals serve a purpose.
They do.
They're here. This is their beach. Everybody else who's coming in looking so ridiculous in their colors and they're just obnoxious deserve to be put in their place.
Things get overwhelmed unless there's grumpy locals.
Totally, entirely serves a purpose.
Yep.
All right, article number 2, blood feud. World's greatest surfer Laird Hamilton punches other world's greatest surfer Kelly Slater in the mouth by releasing even more ecologically sound luxury watch!
It's true. Guess what? Right here, this is by far and away the biggest story Beach Grit has ever had. Multiple millions of clicks on this story. So it worked. It was clickbait magic, apparently. I thought the title was pretty clear, that he punched him metaphorically with a new luxury watch.
Well, the title is awesome because it's World's Greatest Surfer Laird Hamilton against another world's greatest surfer, Kelly Slater.
Yeah.
I love that part. And it's an even more ecologically sound luxury watch.
This dumb story, I watched it, like I put it up and I watched it kick, like, I'll get in the analytics and see what's going on. I watched it kick. And it was like, I was like, oh, this is a funny one. We got a little bit of a heater. Woke up, checked again the next morning. Beach Grit has never had that many people on it, not even close. Checked again, end of the day, and it was like 8 times that. It was like it was like a straight viral crazy thing. But yeah, I think people were mad about it. People thought that I had a friend say, text me and say, my brother-in-law who lives in Utah, I think, and never once touches the water unless he needs to fly fish, texted me that he was really annoyed that he clicked on this website to read a story about one famous surfer punching another famous surfer. Yeah.
And then to find out that there was no punch thrown.
No, it was an ecologically, a metaphorical, more ecologically sound watch.
So yeah, what is the story?
Well, Kelly, has his super ocean with Breitling, where I think the ecological part of it is the band is made from ocean junk, maybe like an outer known, take plastics from the ocean and make the watch band all fine and good. But Laird's with Bremont, a British luxury watch manufacturer, I think 100% of the profits go to some ecological shark organization. So Laird, instead of just making an ocean junk band, really put his theoretical money where his mouth was, and all the profits go to saving sharks. Something
incredible. All the profits of the $5,000 watch.
A real punch in the mouth to Kelly Slater.
They're both priced at around $5,000, right?
Yeah, I think exactly. So they're both in the wheelhouse of each other.
Which watch would you prefer to wear?
To be honest, probably the Kelly one.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Breitling guy or a Bremont guy, but Breitling at least is a heritage brand. I think Bremont is new, like good for them, great. But a new luxury watch seems odd. Like luxury watch seems like it has to be a bit of a heritage. Those
giant dive watches are just ugly.
Yeah. But
I mean, they really...
If I would do Laird's, if Laird actually did have a depth gauge on it, then I would do Laird.
Look, if you're diving, great, wear one of those watches. But 99% of people who buy those watches are just wearing it to go shopping at the mall. You know what I mean? Or to the grocery store.
I will tell you that having a depth gauge on your watch is always fun. I had a good dive watch for a hot minute, and even just swimming, like out with friends, just wondering how deep things is, and then you can go figure it out.
Probably within 10 feet. If you're going in it, you're not going deeper than 10 feet. And at that point, I could just estimate. I got a pizza oven a couple of weeks ago, and with it, I got one of those temperature gauge lasers. It's like a little gun. You shoot the laser at something, and it tells you the exact temperature. I am checking the temperature on everything in the house now.
Yeah. Is there any surprises? Any either hotter or colder surprises?
Not really, but I'll test the dog. I'm like, oh, the dog, apparently dogs are about the same temperature as we are. 98.6 degrees. A glass of wine. I'm like, wonder how cold this is. It's been out of the refrigerator for a couple minutes. Test that. Cold? 66 degrees.
Yeah. So it's like room temperature.
Cold room, I guess. Yeah. The other day it was really hot outside, and I'm like, I wonder how hot the wall is. Tested the wall, it was only 85 degrees.
Oh, nice. Man, this makes me want to get a heat gun. I mean,
you can get them on Amazon for like $20. It'll be there tomorrow. By the way, there was a couple of great comments on the watch story. The one at the top that had the most likes, I think, said, this is from John's Knees. Said, watches are great if you're looking to strike up conversations with other men.
Yeah, it's totally true. It is totally true.
And the other comment from Redfish said, neither one of them can see their watch face without reading glasses.
Yeah, the Beach Grit commentary team really stepped up on that one. Like, people really made me laugh a lot in there before the people who got sucked in on clickbait came and got angry that they got sucked in.
Did anybody leave an angry
comment? Oh yeah. There's a good like 10 of them like, what? Nobody punched anybody, clickbait.
Hilarious. Yeah, welcome to Beach Grit. All right, let's go to commercial break. I've got a brand new spin or a brand new commercial for you, Chaz. Not a new company. Not exactly. You know what? I'm not even going to tease it. Let's just go to commercial. We'll be back with Barrel or Not. Chaz, remember all the ghost stories that we had a couple of weeks ago?
Sure do.
All right, well, we're staying in that theme for today's commercial.
Great.
Could you possibly guess what a ghost kitchen is?
a ghost kitchen is an empty kitchen?
It's the exact opposite. It
A
is
full kitchen.
it is a very full kitchen. This is a genius business concept. We're talking about Bubba Coos, one of our favorite burritos on the planet. Bubba Coos has introduced Toss'em wings.
Let
So
me
they're
hear
like,
about it.
okay, Bubba Coos is like, look, killing the burrito game, obviously, but who doesn't love a chicken sandwich and who doesn't love chicken wings?
I love both.
Everybody does, right? And chicken sandwiches are like all the rage right now for the last year or two, right? So like, we want to get into the chicken game, but we don't want to dilute the Bubba Coos game. We also don't want to, build an entire second store, essentially. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to run Toss'em Wings out of Bubba Coos Kitchen. So you got two brands under one roof. You can only get Toss'em Wings for pickup or delivery. So get them delivered, essentially, is the idea. You can order them through the Bubba Coos app, but this is an entire like secondary brand operating out of the same kitchen.
Ghost kitchen, man. This is such a great concept. And what is it called? Toss'em Wings?
Toss'em Wings.
Are Toss'em Wings is there Toss'em Wings branding on Bubba Coos buildings?
Nope.
You don't even know it's there.
So you can't even go in and like order off the menu. You got to do it through the app, order online, all that sort of stuff. And you can either pick it up there or just have it delivered.
Geniuses. I mean, I'll tell you what, New Jersey folk, smartest people on the planet.
Totally. Completely. And so, yeah, if you are in anywhere near New Jersey, there's actually a ton of locations, dozens of locations where you can get Toss'em Wings. There's a couple locations in California, a couple elsewhere. But as we've talked on this show, if you wanted to get into get rich off burritos, get rich by opening a franchise, this is two businesses for the price of one.
You get stinking a wing business and a burrito business?
It's pretty incredible.
I want to get in.
I want a chicken sandwich. I want to toss some chicken sandwich. Bubbacoos.com is the website, but download the app. Go to bubbacoos.com/surf, get the app, and you can order through your phone, either from the Bubba Coos menu or the Toss'em Wings menu. And then also consider getting rich off wings and burritos.
Why wouldn't you want to?
Rob Kelly is enjoying every minute of it. All right, Chaz, back from break. Check this listener email out. Hey, I was having some serious deja vu today. Not the first time that you guys have repeated Barrel or Not topics, but I want to hear the June 11th, 2022 Chaz argue it out with the September 11th, 2017 Chaz about peeing in pools. When did he get so uptight? Both episodes also feature ragging on Jerry Lopez too. Keep up the work, Andrew. So apparently we have done peeing in pools.
And apparently I was a pro peer.
Yeah, apparently.
I wonder if we dug back in, because I know we do repeat them every once in a while. How consistent? I'm not consistent. Clearly I was a pool peer in 2017 and I'm not anymore.
So defend yourself. How can you change your mind in a short 5 years?
And wiser.
Okay.
Older and wiser, and having a child but I had a child back then. I'm gonna have to really do some self-reflection, some Kalohe Andino-esque self-reflection.
Yeah.
And wonder why I blew this so bad, why I was a head case.
I think you do. Also, I just love, like, I can't remember the Barrel or Not topics. Like, I did not know that we had already covered peeing in pools 5 years ago, but I love that the listener not only remembers it, but was able to dig up the episode.
I mean, how in the world would you, because you can't, like, there's no tags, right? You don't tag peeing in pool.
No.
Yeah. So
like, he couldn't just search the website. Like, he couldn't type in the search function to find it. He would have to remember and then go seek it out.
Thank you. Thank you
Crazy.
for your work, good listener.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, hardcore listeners. We actually should rely on those hardcore listeners more. There's so many little tedious projects that I need done occasionally that and I just don't have the time to do it. And I also don't like my brain doesn't commit that stuff to memory. But if I now know Andrew is a hardcore listener, I'm going to rely on him in the future for those projects.
Archival work.
Exactly.
He can be the Matt Warshaw of surf podcasts.
Boom. Okay, Chaz, barrel or nah? We talked about woodies last week, wood paneling on vehicles. Barrel or nah? Curtains in a vehicle.
I'm going to say curtains are great for a hearse. Curtains are great for if you're a child molester. And I'm going to say those are the only two places curtains are appropriate in a vehicle, and the Middle East.
That's a lot of range there. So you are right. There are the big Dodge van. Generally, the child molester drives a blackout. There are no windows in that van, but the occasional one has purchased the van with the windows and then puts curtains in it.
Yeah.
Right. But the other side of the spectrum is like a Rolls-Royce Phantom.
It's true. With curtains.
The Rolls-Royce, Bentley, those have curtains in them.
It's sort of a kook occurrence. You're either the only people who have curtains are the super rich, the dead. I mean, because hearses have curtains too. So you're either dead, crazy rich, or a child molester.
Right.
One of them. So if you're crazy rich, throw curtains. But if you're not crazy rich, then if you have curtains, you are, by process of elimination, if you're still alive, then you're a child molester.
Dangerous game to play.
Exactly. Like, hey, and I'm not going to be the one who says how rich is rich, right? Like, maybe you feel rich, so have at it. But know that other people, if they see you alive, will think you're a child molester.
All right. Well, so if you just became the richest person in your family, and that means you're driving a Lincoln Continental, you're like, man, I've made it. I'm putting curtains in this Lincoln Continental because I am, among everybody I know, I am it.
Yep.
Not okay?
No, if you're in a Continental and you're doing that, you're okay. I'm going to say
Lincoln Continental.
I'm going to say you made enough with your Lincoln Continental to be okay. I mean, what year?
That's if it's one of those old ones with those suicide doors, those things are so cool. That deserves curtains.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. If that's what you're driving, then you're not a child molester, a chomo. That's what they call them in prison.
Yeah, well, if I was a neighbor of that guy, I'd still hide my kids.
Yeah.
I'm not taking any chances with that Lincoln Continental. Also, what are you trying to protect yourself from with those curtains? Like, you're driving somewhere and you're like, forget it, I don't want to see the outside world. Yeah. You close your curtains.
I mean, or going into a rest stop and really needing a nap, like a sun-free nap, but still, that's lame.
Yeah, that's weird. All right, so you got to pick barrel or not, curtains.
I'm gonna go no barrel. The child molester is too big for me to cross.
They ruin it for everyone.
Yeah, they usually do.
They really do.
Always.
Okay, I'm going no on curtains also. I don't see the purpose. Tint your windows like a normal person. We've got, remember all that defecation talk that we promised we would never do again?
Yeah.
Well, one additional listener email came in, and it said, I don't have it in front of me, but basically to the effect of, not only would I never poop in a surf shop, I would never poop in public in general. So barrel or nah, pooping in public restrooms?
Barrel.
Really?
Like, why be precious about it? Like, people who are anal retentive, no pun intended, are
exactly
annoying.
What they are.
Yeah, like, but are annoying. Like, man up, woman up, take care of your business. Like, sure, some places are dirtier than others. Tough. Like, go get some, be respectful, of course. Don't defecate on the seat. Don't leave it unflushed. Like, be a human, but that's what they're there for. And if you're too big of a weirdo to like, ooh, yucky, then that means you're like that way about a lot of stuff.
Too uptight.
Yeah. Anal.
So, but aren't you more comfortable pooping at home?
Not necessarily. A nice airport bathroom, like got a couple hours between flights, go in, relax, read the magazine in the stall?
That's the worst. No, I like an individual bathroom. I don't want to stall next to somebody else. You could see their feet, you can hear stuff, you could smell stuff. That's the worst place.
I hear you. The individual bathroom is the Rolls Royce of bathrooms, but also individual bathroom means that somebody's waiting to come in generally, right? Stall bathroom, minding your own business in there. You got your stall, plenty of stalls around, like a relaxing time. Don't have to worry about that kid outside waiting to go.
See, I like the approach you're taking to your life, but I still prefer home every time. So if I am somewhere and I know I'll be home in 30 minutes, I'm going to hold it to wait till I get home because I don't want to use that public bathroom.
I mean, if you can hold it, whatever, have at it. But I'm going to say, even if you have an opportunity to use a public restroom, use one. Do it today, dear listener.
Right.
Pull over and use a rest stop.
All right. Bold strategy. The rest stop's dangerous. Bold. That's even worse than the airport in my mind, but you do you. All right. Final barrel or nah. Doing something half-assed.
Oh, barrel. Like
both
the word and actual doing half-assed things.
Okay. I did not know for the vast majority of my life if it was half-assed or half-fast with an F, because doing something half-fast almost makes more sense. I don't know what doing something half-assed would be. How do you use half your ass?
Well, and also what is full, like if they're half-assed, there should be a full-assed, right? Like,
yeah, put your full ass into this.
Yeah, that guy was fully assed right there.
John, I like the way you did your job today. You really put your full ass into it.
Yeah, well, I suppose we should bring this, like, it's right there sitting. A whole new phrase or a whole new euphemism in the English language is right there, and we can pluck it and basically canonize it. Full ass.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm going to start using it in Beach Grit headlines. See how far we can take this.
Kook Dan Duane puts his full ass into new podcast series, Reunion, Shark Attacks in Paradise.
This is it right here. You wrote it for me.
Man, my first Beach Grit headline ever.
That's pretty great.
What is half-assed? Where does this come from?
I mean, it's got to be the assumption is full ass is all the way and half ass is halfway.
But where did this come from? Like somebody body check, like, does it come from hockey? Somebody body checked someone with their full ass and then somebody else did it halfway, like, I can't imagine.
I like the etymology of that. I like, if this came from hockey, then I like it, but you're really right. What would the starting point of doing something with half your ass be?
And how did it go from such a weird, unique little subculture, whether it's hockey or whatever it is, into being just like a commonly used phrase in mass, in everybody's awareness? Yeah.
I mean, I go poll people at your grocery store, what is the definition of half-assed, and get the right answer, I bet, 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
People know what it is.
Completely.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get to the root of this half-assed, but in the meantime, I'm going to bring on full ass.
Perfect. And I'm going barrel on half-assed in any usage.
Yep. In usage and also in actual practice. Like doing something real solid half-assed job on something feels so good sometimes.
I know I could do a few things well, or I could do a ton of things very mediocrely. Perfect. All right. Well, great show today, Chaz. Is there anything you got to report on or promote?
I don't think so. I think, looking forward to being back at Album Surfboards next week. Okay. In person.
Let's do it. And then we'll also, it's worth noting that we're giving away a John Pizell custom built board built for John Florence. John not only got the board, he wrote it and then traded it back in eventually, as you do. And we're giving that John custom away to one lucky listener who supports our work.
Worth the subscription right there.
It's $5 a month. You won't notice it missing. It keeps us in business, and you can win this unbelievable relic of surf history.
I mean, I don't know if you've been following the news, but the price of like vintage surfboards or unique surfboards going through the roof these days.
Yeah, well, I'm friends with Scott Bass and he runs an auction, and yeah, they crush it.
Yeah.
So yeah, hang on, win that board. It'll cost you $5 and then hang on to it for like 20 years, sell it for
50.
tens of G's.
Yep. Get rich.
All right, Chaz, until next week.
Bon
Leave it
voyage.
to Hannah.
Great. Perfect.
All right, man.